What is good, Raider Nation? It's your boy Raider Alex back with yet another video for you guys. Anybody that's new to the channel and you guys love Raider related content just like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. That being said, let's jump right into the topic of this video. Today I wanted to talk about the defense and some of the big issues that I saw in yesterday's blowout loss against the Carolina Panthers. Now, one thing to keep in mind is Antonio Pierce's press conference after the game, after the loss.
I think as the game went on, I don't think it was a team. I think there was definitely some individuals that made business decisions, and will make business decisions going forward as well.
So as you could hear there, Antonio Pierce was not happy with the performance and with the effort from this team. Now, it's hard to know who exactly he was talking about, but after watching the film, and watching the film on the defensive side of the football specifically, I feel like it gives us a hint on who he could potentially have been talking about. It may not have just been one specific player either. It could have been multiple different players. But there's no doubt the Raiders defense did not show up yesterday. We got cooked in the secondary and we weren't able to stop the run. But let's just jump into some of the most notable reps that I noticed. Here on this first one, we can see the Panthers were just able to establish the run and completely dominate us up front in the interior. And we also got linebacker Robert Spillane missing the tackle. Very uncharacteristic from a guy like him, but this leads to a first down on the ground for the Panthers. Now, another rep right here against the run. We got number 96 gets completely wiped out against the run, and just look at that hole that the Panthers were able to generate for Chuba Hubbard, and he takes us for another great gain on first down, establishing the run early on for them. On this rep, we got a cover 3 zone, and I notice Marcus Epps is going to bite on this underneath route, and this gives Andy Dalton just enough space to fit this pass between him and Jacorian Bennett for our first down. Here we got zone coverage across the middle with linebacker Robert Spillane and Masterson, and this has just got to be a lot better here, the coverage. You got two guys right here, and Andy Dalton is still able to fit this through. He threads the needle, and the wide receiver gets some big yards after the catch right here. And on this rep, we just have poor effort and tackling from cornerback Jack Jones and Luke Masterson right here. Inside the red zone here, trips formation from the Panthers, top of the screen. And we got Jack Jones gets isolated 1v1, and he just gets burnt on this crosser route for the touchdown. Here the Panthers were just able to dominate us up front here, and once again we got more missed tackles from this defense. It was just insane to see how many times we weren't able to wrap up. Here the Raiders play super soft zone coverage on third down, and veteran wide receiver Adam Thielen is smart. He immediately recognizes this. He immediately runs to the sticks, turns around, and we get lucky right here. We're lucky Andy Dalton wasn't able to throw this pass accurately. They weren't able to convert on this. But in my opinion, this is just a way too conservative look from this defense, especially on a 3rd and long when you got to get off the field. Here we got wide receiver Deontay Johnson matched up against slot cornerback Nate Hobbs, and he gives them a free release off the line, and he gets absolutely cooked on this rep. He gains a lot of separation, and once again we just weren't able to tackle. Just huge play for the Panthers right here. Here we got a cover 2 look from the Raiders defense, and here the safeties don't play this very well. First, you got Marcus Epps. He doesn't take a good angle on this play. He's kind of stuck in no man's land. It looks like he's not really sure whether to cover like the post route across the middle or the streak. And I just don't like how Trayvon Merrick plays this snap as well. He should have been the one, in my opinion, that covers the post route, and Marcus Epps should have been covering the streak route. But this slight hesitation, this slight error gives the Panthers just enough space for Andy Dalton to fit this in the back of the end zone for his 3rd touchdown pass of the first half alone. Here, Deontay Johnson is going to beat us with a dig route across the middle, and then Jacorian Bennett isn't able to bring him down, and then once again we got another missed tackle from Jack Jones. Here, the Raiders had a chance for an interception from Nate Hobbs. Good play by him, but this was really the only way we're going to get back into this game. We needed some big time plays from the defense, a turnover or two to try to shift the momentum, but it just really felt like one of those days where nothing could go right for us. Here we got linebacker Tommy Eichenberg cannot match the speed covering the running back, and once again another missed tackle from this defense. Here, just look at the massive hole the Panthers were able to generate up front. The Raiders defensive line was getting absolutely dominated all game long inside the trenches, and you see a clear example of this on this rep. Here against the run, we got a really bad contain from Jack Jones against the run. He doesn't seal the edge, and he allows the running back to beat him on the outside. He's got to force him inside to where he has his help with the linebackers, but he lets him get to the outside and is just unable to bring him down. Bad play. And to be fair, it wasn't just Jack Jones. We also got other players that just weren't tackling well. Here we got Jacorian Bennett with a terrible play and just effort in general stopping the run. Mentally, these guys were definitely checked out at this stage of the game. And last but not least, we can see Jack Jones wanted no smoke on this rep. This type of effort is really unacceptable. It really gives me Marcus Peters vibes from his piss poor effort that we saw last year. But this type of play is unacceptable. So as we can see, Raider Nation, the defense got absolutely torched last game. And the biggest issue for this defense is we still cannot stop the run. The Raiders defensive line got absolutely dominated against their offensive line, and they were able to run the ball at will down our throats, and that's a huge issue for this team. Fundamentally, this team is not sound if you can't stop the run. The Raiders coming into this game, their biggest strength was the secondary group stopping the pass, but in this game, Andy Dalton completely shredded us. He threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and this defense wasn't tackling. I'm not sure why we had such a tough time tackling. I didn't see this type of issue the first couple of weeks, but one thing I will say is towards the end of the game, it definitely looked like these guys, a lot of them were mentally checked out. It looked like they quit on this football team, and that's not a good sign at all. And you can definitely see where Antonio Pierce was very frustrated with the lack of effort from this team. He said some players were out there making business decisions. I think he's definitely talking about somebody on this defense. If I had to guess, I wouldn't be shocked if it was Jack Jones. He missed so many different tackles in this game. And look, sometimes you're going to miss tackles, that's part of the game, but that wasn't really the situation for him. There was just times where you could just see he wasn't giving his full effort out there. He wasn't doing his best to try to make a play in the run game. We know he can tackle. I mean, I saw him last week make a big tackle on Lamar Jackson late in the fourth quarter when the defense needed a stop. And I understand in the fourth quarter the game was essentially over, but still, that's not the type of body language you want to show on this football team. That's not what you want to see from your starters. And regardless, Jack Jones and this defense was missing tackles left and right in the first, second quarter, third quarter. It didn't really matter what stage of the game this was happening at. The defense didn't show up. And I will say, this is a bad look for the Raiders thus far. This is a bad look for Antonio Pierce. Look, I definitely understand where he's coming from. And I agree with his statement. Like, we have to have much better effort out there. But I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of him coming out and saying this in the press conference to the media. To me, this is something that you keep internally inside the locker room. You say it to the player you're specifically talking about in the locker room. Or, you know, if there was multiple players, you address them in that way. I don't like AP coming out and saying this to the media. And I think Antonio Pierce has to watch out. Look, it's still early. It's only week 3, so I don't want to, overreact and say he's losing the locker room. This team is in shambles. I don't want to overreact in that sense. The season is still young. They could definitely bounce back next week. And next thing you know, you get a couple wins under your belt. Okay, you're back in the mix of things. But for me, one of the biggest positives, one of the biggest pros for Antonio Pierce being our head coach was the fact that he had the locker room, The players respected him. They were willing to go out there and fight for him. It really seemed like they were willing to run through a brick wall for Antonio Pierce. He won the fan base. He's a leader of men. That's really the biggest takeaways that you get from Antonio Pierce. That's one of the biggest strengths he has as a head coach. He's not a play caller. He didn't get hired because he's some defensive-minded genius. He doesn't call any plays on defense or on offense. He is more of a locker room guy. And with Antonio Pierce saying stuff like this, the last thing he wants to do is lose the locker room, because if that ever were to happen, in my opinion, Antonio Pierce is cooked as a head coach. And like I said, it's still early. It's week 3. I'm not saying he's lost the locker room, but I'm just saying I'm not a fan of him coming out and saying this. And I do feel like if he keeps doing stuff like this, that could potentially lead down the line for him having issues and drama inside the locker room, and that's the last thing this team needs. We'll just have to see ultimately how this team responds next week against the Cleveland Browns at home. After putting out a performance like this, they better be ready to show out. The intensity better be there, and ultimately they better be able to play a complete football game and find a way to win the football game. The Raiders still have a lot of issues that they're going to have to address and fix, and I think it all really stems from not being able to run the football effectively on offense and on defense. You can't stop the run. Those are things that good teams, that good fundamentally sound teams can do. You don't necessarily have to be a top 10 unit in running the football, but you have to be productive. And the Raiders so far are not when it comes to both sides of the trenches. And that's a big issue we're going to have to address. But Raider Nation, I definitely want to get your guys' feedback in the comment section down below. Who do you think Antonio Pierce was specifically talking about in his comments? Let me know in that comment section down below. But with that being said, Raider Nation, that's all for you guys in today's video. Anybody that's new to the channel and you guys love Raider related content just like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. That being said, I will see you guys in the next one.